Hello, I'm Bailey Leisure, and I'm back with another video today as I'm going to be recapping the 2019 MLB regular season and also give my predictions for the upcoming wildcard game standings at the end of the regular season, starting off in the American League. In the American League East, the New York Yankees won that division and were second as far as all throughout the American League with 103 victories and 59 losses. And the Tampa Bay Rays were able to get the second wildcard spot with 96 wins and 66 losses. In the American League Central, the Minnesota Twins, after having a disappointing season in 2018, they were able to bounce back with 101 wins and 61 losses. In the American League West, the Houston Astros won 107 games, which is a franchise record, and 55 losses, and they had the best record in all of baseball. And the Oakland A's got the first wild card spot and will have the right to host the wild card game with 97 wins and 65 losses. In the National League, starting off with the National League East, the Atlanta Braves won the division with 97 wins and 65 losses. Meanwhile, the Washington Nationals got the first wild card spot with 93 wins and 69 losses. In the National League Central, the St. Louis Cardinals won a very tight division with 91 wins and 71 losses. And the Milwaukee Brewers, despite losing Christian Yelich in the month of September, were able to get one of the wild card spots as they got the second wild card spot with a record of 89 wins and 73 losses. And the Los Angeles Dodgers, for the seventh consecutive season, steamrolled the division with 106 wins and 56 losses, a franchise record for them, and they were able to get the top seed in the National League. So moving on to who I thought were the most disappointing teams in 2019. Starting off with the Chicago Cubs, I mean, all that talent, I think just they always had bullpen struggles, and just seems like they were just, they definitely collapsed in the month of September. I mean, they lost in their last 10 games. They went 2-8, especially getting swept at home against the St. Louis Cardinals. Really, probably pretty much knocked them out. And that cost Joe Madden, who won the World Series with them in 2016. He and Theo Epstein decided to part ways, so he'll definitely be one of the big managers that teams who fired managers are going to be looking at. He'll definitely be a top candidate there. So, second on this list is definitely the Philadelphia Phillies. I think, with the team that spent all that money, the money on guys like Andrew McCutchen, Bryce Harper. They just, unfortunately, it just didn't pan out for them. Bryce Harper was okay. But I think when you're paying $350 million, you expect something more than okay. But I think another big part was they just struggled to develop, bullpen. And I think that's what cost them. I mean, they blew a lot of games. And, they ended up finishing with a 500 record. The Red Sox, I mean, they, coming off the World Series championship last year, I think that was definitely very disappointing. Definitely shockingly, they fired their general manager, Dave Dombrowski. And they could we could be seeing, definitely, maybe not a rebuild, but a revamped roster, as they have a lot of players such as, I think, JD Martinez and even Mookie Betts could potentially hit the free agency market this coming off season. The Cleveland Indians, I think definitely, they were, a team that definitely did very well, but I think injuries to the pitching staff and other players such as Jose Ramirez getting hurt, Carlos Carrasco having to come back from cancer, Corey Kluber just couldn't get healthy, and then trading Trevor Bauer, I think they just couldn't catch up with that despite great performances from guys like Ramirez, Francisco Lindor, Shane Bieber, and so forth, but just couldn't do it. And then the Colorado Rockies, I think when you have that hitting lineup with, guys like David Dahl, Nolan Arenado, Charlie Blackmon, and Trevor Story, I think the pitching staff, once again, definitely, it's a hitter-friendly ballpark, but still, when you have those great hitters, you hope you can back it up with great pitching, and they just weren't able to do that, just struggled with when it came to their starting rotation. So teams to look out for in 2020, and teams that I could see potentially be playoff teams again. First I'm going to talk about is the New York Mets. I definitely, when you got, Pete Alonso had that great rookie season, and will probably be Rookie of the Year. So, they have great pitching staff and guys like Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, Marcus Stroman. They have, like I said, great hitters like Pete Alonso, Michael Conforto, So, they have the hitters, and Jeff McNeil as well. But I think the big thing that cost them was definitely bullpen. I mean, Edwin Diaz was a total bust. I mean, the only great bullpen pitcher they really had was Seth Lugo, so I really expect the Mets to make aggressive moves when it comes to bullpen in the offseason, so that definitely will be... the Mets, though, I think they have the pitching staff and the lineup to be a playoff contender next year. The Arizona Diamondbacks, I mean, despite blowing up basically their core roster, letting guys go like Patrick Corbin and AJ Pollock go in the offseason, trading Paul Goldschmidt, their star player, trading Zach Greinke at the trade deadline. But Mike Hazen did a great job because he was able to, free up, payroll, and also, with a Greinke contract, he was able to get prospects and really help rebuild their farm system, which has been lacking since he's been here when he got here in the 2016 offseason. But also he was able to free up, and they're only having to pay $24 million remaining of Greinke's contract compared to, I think, $70 million that they had owed him for the next 2 years. So Diamondbacks, I think, they have some great, have a couple of great young starting rotation guys that could really maybe be great pitchers, such as Zach Gallen and Luke Weaver. Great hitters such as Ketel Marte, Eduardo Escobar, Carson Kelly. If getting the full catching position, he could be a star, a future all-star catcher potentially. I think with the Diamondbacks, I think definitely probably pitching and maybe another outfielder. I feel like their outfield is a little bit lacking, and maybe some bullpen help as well. I think their bullpen definitely looked a lot better in the second half, but it's going to have to continue. But Arizona could definitely can at the very least make the Dodgers sweat a little bit more when it comes to the National League West, and could definitely be a wild card team next year. The Red Sox, depending what they do in the offseason, I think, and depending who their general manager can get, I feel like they could contend again in the American League East, but, it's to be determined. The Cubs, depending on, definitely still have the talent, and, depending on who they pick as their manager, I think definitely they need to fix the bullpen, and we'll see what happens there. And then, I guess if I had to pick a fifth team, the San Diego Padres, I think they definitely have a great farm system. You have Fernando Tatis Jr., Francisco Mejia, but they're going to need, Manny Machado is going to have to be more than what he was this season, which was okay, and they definitely need to develop more starting pitching. Award predictions. I'm going to predict the Rookie of the Year, the MVP, and the Cy Young. So starting off with the Rookies of the Year, I feel like these are pretty unanimous when it comes to both leagues. In the American League for the Astros, Yordan Alvarez, I mean, he was just, another big bat. I mean, they have like 7 big bats in their lineup now, and he was definitely a great add from within, and he had a great season. And then in the National League, I mean, it's Fernando Tatis Jr. was doing very well until he got hurt, and I think that's what cost him, was getting hurt in August. But Pete Alonso, I mean, he set the rookie home run record, so there's no contest right there. Moving on to the Cy Young Awards, and who I think will win there. In the American League, it's very tight between the two Astros. It kind of reminds me of the 2001 Arizona Diamondbacks between Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling, how tight that was. It's very close, and there's even consideration of potentially them being co-Cy Young Award winners, which I could definitely see happening. But if I had to pick one, I'll say Garrett Cole, because he has a little bit better ERA and he's got more strikeouts, although I think Verlander has more wins. But I think wins is kind of win-loss record's kind of an overrated record, as we saw last year. Jacob deGrom put up great numbers despite not winning that many games. But if I had to pick one, I'll say Garrett Cole. And then the National League, it's very tight, and I could say Hyun-Joo Ryu. I feel like it's tight between him and Jacob deGrom. I think deGrom, he has a little bit better ERA. Hyun-Joo Ryu kind of struggled a little bit in September, but he finished very well. If I had to pick one, it could go to either one, but I'll say Jacob deGrom wins it again. It's very tight, but I think deGrom's got more strikeouts, and like Garrett Cole, he has more strikeouts, and I think he's got a better ERA, so I'll go with him. And then in the MVP race, I think that this is very tight in the American League between two players, Mike Trout and Alex Bregman. Now, I know Mike Trout got shut down a couple weeks prior to the end of the season. It's very tight, and we don't really consider postseason, success really more when it comes to MVP voting. So tight. But I'm going to say Mike Trout. I think he did just enough, even despite getting hurt. He did just enough to get the MVP once again. And then in the National League, this is very tight because this could go to 3 or 4 or 5 players. It could go to Anthony Rendon. It could go to Christian Yelich just by getting hurt. Pete Alonso, the rookie. Ketel Marte, maybe even before he got hurt. But I'll say Cody Bellinger. I mean, it's not what the postseason statistics said, and he did cool off a little bit in the month of September, but he still put up nearly 50 home runs. His batting average was ridiculous. I mean, the power that he brought to the Dodgers lineup is undeniable. And then, moving on, as I'm going to talk about the wild card games coming up. So, the National League wild card game will come up first on October 1st. It's going to be a good one between the Brewers and the Nationals. Brandon Woodruff will be starting for the Milwaukee Brewers, but it's looking like he won't start that many innings. It's probably going to be a bullpen game for the Brewers. And for the Nationals, it will be Max Scherzer. So, definitely they're going to get their ace on the mound. It's very tight between these two teams. I mean, even without Christian Yelich, I think the Brewers, they made a great run to get into the playoffs, which I think shocked everybody. It's very tight. I mean, the Nationals have had trouble in their history winning these kind of elimination games. We look at 2012. I mean, they had a 5-0 lead in that Game 5 against the St. Louis Cardinals and blew it. 2016 and 17 going to Game 5s at home and losing them both. So they've struggled with winning these. I think it's very tight when it comes to the hitting lineups. I mean, there's Ryan Braun, there's Lorenzo Cain, there's Mike Moustakas, and then for the Nationals, you got the power bats like Anthony Rendon and Juan Soto. Bullpens. I think the Brewers are better. I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup, but I like the hitting lineups a little bit more, and I think, despite the Brewers' bullpen being very good in the month of September, I think the Nationals, will test it, and I'll take the home team. I'll say the Washington Nationals will win this. And then moving on to the American League wild card game between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Oakland A's. This will be in Oakland. Tampa Bay is starting Charlie Morton. It hasn't been, as I'm recording this video, it hasn't been announced who's starting for the Oakland A's, so there's definitely going to be question marks on who they're going to start there. Pitching staff-wise, I mean, if they had to go to the bullpen for the Rays, I mean, you got Tyler Glass now. Blake Snell is even back, so that's definitely big. Hitting lineup, I think, the Tampa Bay Rays, they don't really have that superstar hitting power, but, Travis d'Arnaud, after having just was a bust with the Mets, he's been very good with them. Matt Duffy, Brandon Lowe, some Kevin Kiermaier, Austin Meadows, and Tommy Pham. Those are actually some great players now that I think about it. So they got some great hitters. With the Oakland A's, I mean, they have guys like Matt Chapman and Chris Davis is still there as well. So definitely there's some great players. I think when it comes to hitting lineups, I'd say the Oakland A's is better. When it comes to pitching staffs, bullpen's pretty good for the Oakland A's. I think it's good for both teams, but I think starting pitching wise is probably better for the Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, Charlie Morton was phenomenal for them this year. So it's very tight when it comes to both these teams. I think it's really tough to tell because I think both these teams on paper are very close to each other, as like the Brewers and the Nationals. But I like the pitching staff a little bit more for the Tampa Bay Rays. So I'm going to go with the Rays to win this game. What were your thoughts on the 2019 MLB regular season? What are your predictions upcoming for the postseason and in the wild card games? So leave in the comments section below. As always, follow me on Twitter at Laser96. Click like if you like the video, and subscribe if you like the content on my channel. So thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you all later.